Schönen guten Abend und herzlich willkommen zu einem ganz besonderen Zocken mit Bohnen. Heute hier auf Rocket Beans TV, denn ich habe einen Gast bei mir und ich werde gleich auf Englisch weitersprechen. Ich hoffe, ihr seid bereit. Denn I have with me Cecil.
Hello.
Yeah, developer legend extraordinaire.
Well, that's
so
very
to speak.
kind. Thank you.
So I just explained to our German viewers that we're gonna keep on talking in English.
Yes,
because
I'm really sorry about this. My German is non-existent.
you couldn't have learned just German if you knew you would be coming here. You have this little
I did
books.
learn German, but the trouble is that Germans speak such great English that there's really no point.
Yeah, I hope you still are able to understand me if I try to speak German. So you are, of course, if people watched us on the Gamescom and other occasions, the developer of a game we know here, or of a series called Baphomets Fluch, or otherwise known as Broken Sword.
Yep.
So one of the big and great adventure series that I'm sure everybody has played or should have played.
I hope so. But thank you. Yes.
Yeah, and we had already a nice talk on Gamescom a little bit, but now you found it time to come over to us and you have something special to present because there's something new with Broken Sword.
Absolutely. Yes. No. And it was great to speak to you before. But really, I just wanted to show the game on PlayStation 4. It's on PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. Mm-hmm. And in the UK and America, they're sort of fairly... The sales of Xbox and PlayStation are about the same. Mm-hmm. Whereas in Germany and France and the rest of Europe, I believe the PlayStation 4 is quite dominant.
That's kind of the thing. Yeah, we here in Germany are quite if it's coming to consoles, it's PlayStation country.
Yeah.
So otherwise, it's PC country, because that's what the German people play. They want to have the simulations, their adventures, and their computer. Yeah,
absolutely. And also, Germany is probably one of the last countries where there's still a really healthy box, retail market.
Yeah.
Whereas certainly in the UK, the vast majority has gone to digital now. And America as well.
We're still collectors here.
Yeah,
so,
which I think is great. It makes perfect sense, doesn't it?
Yeah, totally. If I look back home at my extensive collection, if it would be just a hard drive, it wouldn't feel as good.
And there you get into the question of DRM, of course, digital rights management. Mm-hmm. So you can anything that doesn't have DRM, you could go and play from decades and decades ago.
Yeah, I can still, without connecting to the internet, go pull out my game and hope that still the discs are working. Dust them off a little bit and put them in. And then it should be working out. Or the CDs nowadays. Great. Yeah, we're gonna play a little bit of Broken Sword, of Baphomets Fluch 5 on PlayStation 4.
Yep.
You're gonna show it a little bit to us. And for everyone out there who's able to speak English and understand me now, please translate if you don't. But I've opened up a Reddit thread. If you go on our Reddit, there is a thread where you can post questions for Charles that we're gonna go through later. We're gonna first play a little bit of the game. You're gonna explain us what's different, what's new in the PlayStation 4 version, and especially for the people who don't know Broken Sword up now, we're gonna talk a little bit about this. And we're gonna afterwards look at the questions and just have a little nice talk.
Fantastic.
About it. And also post it into the chat. If I tend to catch something with the corner of my eye, then that should work also. But if you have specific questions, then post it into the Reddit.
All right. Okay, well, let's get going. Can I just give a little context to the Baphomets Fluch?
Please.
The first game actually was in 1997. So the series has been running for quite some time. But we haven't written... This is the 5th. So we haven't been producing huge numbers of them. And really, the company and all the games that we've written came from the era where Sierra were writing really serious games. So Broken Sword has got serious story, but we put a lot of humour in. So we're kind of juxtaposing the humour and the serious story. So the stories itself have all had a serious background. The first Baphomets Fluch involved an American, George Stobart, who comes to Paris and meets this sassy French journalist.
Very famous beginning. So the cafe bombing with the clown. So that's one of the famous scenes from graphic adventures.
And that was fun because we worked with some really talented people. A wonderful layout artist called Owen Cahill in Ireland, who had come from the Don Bluth studios, and then a friend who I used to play cricket with. Cricket, to most of your viewers, cricket will be absolutely meaningless, either as a concept or as a game. But in England, we sort of play this game and take it quite seriously. And I'd happened to be playing cricket with this young composer, and then 5 years later, in 1997, approached him again to write the music for Broken Sword, and he's written the music for Broken Swords 1, 2, and 5. And a lot of people comment on the fact that the beginning, that scene where a Neo-Templar group try and blow up George and Nico, is very similar to the Da Vinci Code.
Okay, that could be very well. Da Vinci Code was a bit later. Yeah,
the Da Vinci Code is a lot later, and a lot of our fans are absolutely convinced that Dan Brown must have played Broken Sword, because there are so many similarities between what he's written in the Da Vinci Code and Broken Sword.
Yeah, I have to say, especially the first and the second one, I am a big adventure fan. I've been playing on computers and on consoles. I played the first and the second on PlayStation 1 back then with the German dub. So
with the mouse, I hope.
No, with the controller. But I'm used to that because I played Manic Mansion on the C64 with a flight stick. That was the only. I didn't have a mouse back then. But before we delve more into this, I just wanted to say, of course, Revolution Software, Revolution Studios. You had two other games that I had also played, especially the second one I want to mention, Lure of the Temptress was one of them, and Beneath the Steel Sky.
Wow, so you've played them all?
Yeah, I had Beneath the Steel Sky. I bought this was a great box. It was a black box, big black box with just the silver logo in front. Yeah, I just discovered it here in our shopping district, and what is this? Oh, this looks great. I tried it out, and it's just so cyber. It was difficult. It was pretty difficult. I played on Amiga. Yeah, just you have to start it out, and then you have to go outside with a big chasm down there and get to the door that the guy's running down. So it was right up my alley. So I knew about your studio, and then came Baphomets Fluch or Broken Sword, and these two I started and finished on the PlayStation 1 back then.
Now let me ask you about the Beneath the Steel Sky on Amiga.
Yeah.
Did you play the version with the voice acting?
Let me remember. I remember there were quite a bit of discs in there.
There were 15 discs.
There were 15 discs, yeah.
Right.
About as much as for Indiana Jones on the Amiga.
So that would be voice acting as well.
That should have been the voice acting.
Can you imagine now playing a game where you had to put 15 discs in? So every time you changed room, pretty much, you'd be required to change the disc. It's
still a pain in my heart if I remember back those days. I don't remember how much I had to switch the discs on Beneath the Steel Sky. It was very difficult to play something like Indiana Jones because this one wasn't really made for an Amiga with the 15 discs. You had to watch the intro. Then in the intro, just to show a picture, you had to switch from disc 1 to disc 15.
Oh no!
Show this one picture. And even if I had 2 disk drives, I still had to switch all the time. So it was nigh unplayable.
Do you know why that was? And that was obviously because it was made by American developers who assumed that you had a floppy drive. When I went to work for US Gold in the mid-80s, we were taking American games that were primarily written on floppy disk and converting them to cassette. And we were having to do a lot of work to make sure that you didn't have this problem. But obviously, as a European developer, most people used cassettes, whereas the Americans were using floppy disks. So it was a big mentality change.
It was quite a big mentality change. Yeah, so just to throw this in, a little bit of context for the people who were alive back then, like some people here. And if you're not, then brush it up. We're gonna go through this in Retro Club. Yeah, I'm gonna show these games so that you still can experience them. But now, let's go back to Broken Sword.
Okay, so Broken Sword. And they have a historical background. So I'm going to play the intro. Can we just run through the intro, which is maybe 2 minutes, and give a little bit of context? And I love the whole history, particularly the medieval history. For Broken Sword 1, it was Knights Templar. And in this, it's the idea of, and I won't talk about, because it would be a spoiler and it would take all evening, but the idea that you have an ancient group called the Gnostics, and the Gnostics were what was very interesting. Let me tell you a story very briefly, because this is a great theologian wrote a fantastic book about this, called The Secret of the Gnostics. I think Elaine Pagels. She'll be on the internet, but in about 1945 in Upper Egypt, and Upper Egypt is the north of the part of Egypt, upper relative to the Nile, a farmer was looking for soft soil to use as fertilizer, and he was digging, and he came across a very well sealed casket, and he opened it up. Sorry, he pulled it out, and he thought there'd be something valuable. So he smashed it.
So, of course, he opens it up.
He smashed it. And inside, there were just manuscripts. He was very disappointed. So he took them home. And the story goes that his mother used some to light the fire, or they used some for the animals. And then a friend said, no, let me take them to Cairo and I'll sell them. So he did. And it took decades and decades before this incredible find, which illegally went all over the world, was traced back to this one moment. And they were the Gospels of Mary Magdalene and Doubting Thomas and what are called the Gnostics. And so in the time of Jesus, you had the Orthodox, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, and the Gnostics. And the Gnostics had secret knowledge. And this is very... I won't go any deep, but it's very, very interesting, because then in the medieval times, in 1207, finally they were wiped out by the Pope. The Orthodox Christian hated them at the time of Jesus.
The Crusades.
Hated them, and then you had the Crusade, the Albigensian Crusade, which went and was very, very brutal and wiped them out. So this game is sort of exploring that and some of the ideas behind. So there's the context. What we'll do is we'll start with a new game.
Does this come from a place of personal interest, or are you looking for kind of, this would make a nice context to do a game like this?
Well,
because
a bit of both. A bit of both.
Oh.
So when my family complain because whenever I go on holiday, it's always to somewhere I think it's interesting, and they say you always work, and I go, but I'll enjoy it.
Yeah.
You're happy. You can
have some fun. I go to look at some broken stones.
Exactly. But So this game starts off, and we're going to see in a moment Catalonia, and so of course there was a holiday off to Catalonia, to Montserrat, which is a most fantastic, beautiful abbey in the mountains. So let's talk a little bit about the game itself. Obviously, our objective here is to produce very beautiful, cartoony style with multiple parallax layers, which you'll see when we start the game.
Yeah, it's a little bit different compared to, or it's nearer to the first and second Broken Sword than compared to the third and the fourth, which were back in the era where everything was polygons.
Yes. Well, part of the reason for that was that the move, when PlayStation was so successful, the retailers stopped PlayStation over PC, and that's why so many people said that PC was dead. There was this sort of common expression, PC is dead, which clearly was ludicrous, but PC was diminishing because retailers wanted to stock PlayStation. And what's really changed is that with digital now, instead of having a limited number of slots at retail, you now have effectively an infinite storefront, and so PC has made a huge resurgence, and indeed adventure games.
Yeah, especially we talked at Gamescom about this. This was back when it came out on PC, a game that's been financed by Kickstarter, and I did contribute back then to the Kickstarter it was me.
That was very kind of you. Thank you.
So it's just from that's the credit that's kind of built up. You say, hey, I know these games would be great to see another one of those. Let's just contribute a little bit, and you have this quite often with PC games. How was it now that the PC version is out a bit longer? Yeah, it was split up in two parts. So you have episode 1, episode 2 that comprise the full game. How was the reception? Did it come across what you expected from it?
Generally, I am really pleased with the reception because so many Kickstarters went off the rails. So many Kickstarters were never delivered. We delivered the game on Steam. We're getting 9.2. I don't know. We're getting plus 90% plus. Likewise, on iOS, we're getting, so the people who are playing the game are giving us really, really high scores. And the response from the fans is that they're really pleased with the game. It was what we promised and what they wanted, and we delivered it. Let me just start off here. So basically, the idea is that there's this painting, which we saw in the intro, being stolen by the fascists, the Spanish fascists in the Civil War. And we then cut across to Giorgio Nico, and the painting is now at the centre of this as well. So the idea is, of course, it was very significant back in the time of the Spanish Civil War, and now it's significant again in the modern day.
So it's more like Nico and George are kind of there by accident when these things get
Exactly.
stolen.
Exactly.
Oh no, not again.
Yeah, well,
This big mystery and I'm right in the middle. I didn't expect this.
well, it's not a coincidence, of course.
Yeah, of course, you think it's a coincidence and then you see what's behind it.
Well, exactly.
That's
yes,
always
yes.
like Dan Brown wrote it. So,
I beg your pardon.
Sorry.
Gosh, you do know how to be rude.
We're Germans. We're kind of experts on this.
Dan Brown is my sort of nemesis in all
Yeah,
this.
it's always like the hair on the neck just standing up. If you hear this, so let's see a little bit about we've seen the
so we
intro.
start the game. We started off with direct control, but actually everybody said that they really prefer. We have this wonderful thumbstick, analog control, and what we do is, as happens in the PC, you explore the scene for things to do. We've got you have the ability to then move around the location and just explore it and really have fun. So if we start off talking to the priest, he's going to tell us that the
It's gonna give us a little bit of insight who was shot there.
exactly.
Ich bin George Stobbart. Diese Ausstellung war bei meiner Gesellschaft versichert.
Mein Name ist Simeon.
Kann ich irgendetwas tun, um zu helfen?
Sie können für seine Seele beten.
Oh, pray for
Ein
his soul.
sinnloser Mord.
Im
Poor guy.
Gegenteil.
So what the priest is going to say is that
Wie meinen Sie
that
das?
the painting is the work of the
Etwas
devil,
ungeheuer Böses hat
and
sich hier
that
abgespielt.
and
Das
of
war
course
das
George
Werk
is not going
des
to believe it.
Teufels.
But this is very central because it's the
Ich
painting
bin Priester und
gets more and more
Dominikaner.
significant
Ich
until
kenne mich
eventually
mit
you'll
diesen
discover
Dingen
that
aus.
actually it is very. I
Und
mean,
nun
I'm not
entschuldigen
sure how many
Sie mich
spoilers we can give,
Ich muss
but it does have clues.
Yeah,
Of
I,
course
I think that's we're still very light on spoilers. I think we shouldn't say this gonna happen, this and this and this.
Okay.
But to generally say there's gonna stuff happen, you're gonna find stuff out. I think that's okay.
Well, clearly what's gonna happen is that the painting, George thinks it's incidental, but of course the painting is hugely significant, and it's going to get significance. It's going to grow more and more and more. One of the things that I would like to show is the fact that although this is a really, really bad demo for this particular case because you won't see any of this, but what we love the idea of is just having fun. So, for example, if you phone Rickenbacker, then when George speaks, he speaks into the.
Oh, you can hear it from
Mr.
the
Rickenbacker?
speaker. Gonna put it on my mic.
Mr. Rickenbacker, es gibt da ein Problem.
Kaum überraschend wie. Hoffe, es hat nichts mit diesem Leser.
Kind of would have to hold it like this, yeah.
Fürchte doch,
Yes,
Sir.
exactly.
Es hat einen
That's a
Hauptproblem.
nice feature. I think you can on the Xbox. It's there isn't a speaker on the controller, so it's just a PlayStation 4 exclusive thing.
Yep, absolutely. And then something else that I'll just jump through this because hopefully
Der
people
Dieb
will want
hatte
to
eine
play
Waffe.
it. But then
Nein,
we
Sir.
also were able just to have fun with the controller. One of the things that we felt was that
Nein,
you know
Sir.
we've got a lot of expertise on touch because these we've been
Mach ich, Boss.
producing Broken Sword games on iOS. First of all iPhones and then iPads. So what we allow the player to do, if you want, is to
Just use a point
to
and
use
click
the-
style on the touchpad.
and then touch the buttons. So one of the other felt is that the tactility. Is that the equivalent in German? Tactility.
Yeah.
The ability to touch.
Yeah.
Actually, is lovely to explore an adventure game at your own pace. I mean, the big thing is about adventures is that you play them as fast or as slowly as you want. They're cerebral things. So here we have, for example.
In Henris Tasche steckte eine kleine Flasche. Es war eine Flasche Bree. Laut Etikett weckte es das Tier in dir.
What's a brie?
Bray is in German it's Bray. In English you'd call it Brett.
Brett, is it an aphrodisiac or what is it?
Well,
so it makes you wild. It just said.
It does. So here we have Brett.
Okay, it's Rasierwasser.
And
okay.
it's
Yeah.
not unlike a brand of
a bit of an aftershave.
like
this,
aftershave. We would call it eau de cologne actually. Which you probably wouldn't. A nice German eau de cologne. But basically, this all of these things are come. A lot of these things have some sort of significance in my life. And forgive me if I'm repeating myself, but this particular one is significant because when I went to my first disco, there was this eau de cologne that we sprayed all over ourselves because we knew that if we stank of this particular eau de cologne, then all the girls would find us enormously attractive. We just knew it.
Of course, if everybody had the same cologne.
Well, everybody did. Everybody did. So we were all at this school and everybody sprayed themselves with the same cologne. And I remember it was so humiliating. We went into the disco, all of us together, so cool. And one girl turned around to another and went, "Oh my God, what a smell!" And at that point, I was so. This is kind of this is very much the idea. And what we wanted to do also was just give the player the ability to just play around and just do things. So
with a freshly made corpse.
With a freshly made corpse, if that's the sort of thing that you want to do, then that's what you should be able to do. So. We'll close his eyes and we'll...
Player's choice.
Player's choice, absolutely. And you can see that there's a nice... and you'll forgive me because my German isn't very good.
Yeah.
But you can see that as you move over, there's context sensitive. Mm-hmm. And frankly, the game is just really, really easy to play. So we'll go back.
So, of course, did you have to adapt, of course, you said with the touchpad, the stuff that came in there, did you have to make any concessions with adapting the interface to a controller compared to mouse and keyboard, or specifically the mouse, because it looks essentially the same? So, or was it just make the buttons so they match?
We made lots of changes. And then we got it tested, and everyone came back and said, well, actually, the simpler, the better. And that was really the idea. We wanted to put some things in, some new things in. So, for example, when you come across new characters, then
so you have a little bit of information,
and we can find out about them. So, so this is unique to the console versions. Also, if we go outside, we had the opportunity to really add quite a lot in terms of. So you've seen birds flying over. I mean, subtle things. Up there's a little fan going round. Just minor things.
Specifically, starting at this kind of place, it evokes a little bit the beginning of Broken Sword 1. Well, so the first one, since you have a cafe over there, you have the French all around you. Of course, there's no explosion yet and no clown.
No,
but a little bit it was conscious to evoke the feeling of the other one.
Very much so. So if we go back in, I'll show you some of the. I really like the waiter, the Kellner. Because I mean sometimes I wonder why I love these games in Paris, but one of the things that struck me quite late actually in all of this is a memory of going with my mother when I was quite young. Now I was actually born in 1962, so I might well have gone in the 60s, in the late 60s, which was such a different period.
It's quite a different time. Yeah.
But what was also interesting about the 60s was that London, which is where I was brought up, was really poor, and everything was sooty from the industrial. When there was terrible smog. Now you go to London, it's magnificent. Everything's clean, and you go to the House of Parliament. I remember going past the House of Parliament when they cleaned it, and suddenly realizing that instead of this just sooty, horrible building, it was actually a magnificent building. But Paris was always bright and breezy, and people wore different clothes and they smoked different cigarettes and everything was different. And so this is kind of the Paris that I remember from those days.
That's the image you kept from Paris.
That was the kept. But the one thing I really remembered is my mother loved the waiters because they flirted with her. So this is very much a waiter that's a
Verzeihung.
You have to know how to sell. Yeah.
Yeah.
Monsieur.
We'll listen to some of his lines.
In der Galerie.
Ach, wirklich?
Sie klingen gar nicht überrascht.
Jeder Besitz ist Diebstahl, Monsieur. Und jedes Kunstwerk ist Besitztum. Daher ist jedes Kunstwerk Diebstahl.
He gets quite philosophical.
He gets quite philosophical.
So gesehen
So
kann man wohl
what he
kaum
is
widersprechen.
he's a kind of mix of Serge Gainsbourg and who at the time was
Je t'aime.
Je t'aime.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that was such an erotic and evocative song, wasn't it? My God. So Serge Gainsbourg, who was so cool with his cigarette, and Jane Birkin. Do you remember Jane Birkin?
Yeah.
And
Don't smoke, kids. It's just he was cool back then.
Yeah. That was there. I mean, don't smoke now.
Nowadays he's not smoking anymore.
No, is that what we have to say?
No, but I think we're just keeping us safe.
Okay.
We don't have to say it.
So back in those days, I mean, I smoked in those days because it was cool. Now it's not cool at all. I mean, genuinely, it's not cool. One of the things actually that's really interesting coming over in England, virtually nobody smokes. Virtually nobody smokes. So it's really interesting to come to France and Germany, where a lot of young people still do smoke.
It's a little bit different. If the 8-year-old next door gives you a pack of smokes, you're not gonna say no. So
Probably.
It's like it.
Okay, so
Was wissen Sie über Le Lézard
what
Bleu?
this game is very much, it is a traditional point-and-click adventure. But in HD, you'll see that there's lots of animations, and these animations, if we come here,
Kennen Sie Hector?
these animations, like for example the birds that you can see flying across the tobacco, were done specifically for the console version. So there's a lot of new stuff in here.
Are these additions that are not coming via patch to the PC version? So that's something that's exclusive in here because
It's exclusive at the moment. They will probably come across in some sort of patch, but that's to be decided.
So technically, you have drawn backgrounds, but
technically we have hand-drawn backgrounds. Let's come.
Danke für Ihre gleichbleibende
Technically we have hand-drawn
Gleichgültigkeit,
backgrounds. And then we've got 3D characters which we've rendered and where necessary actually added things to try and make them feel like they're 2D. I mean, of course they're 3D, we don't pretend. And the original games were, I mean, this is 1080p. The original games were 640 by 200. So now you're talking, I don't know, 10 times the resolution.
Yeah, of course. And I've been playing them on such a small television like this.
And the great thing is that they really stand up on a big telly, don't they? You know, they look really, really good. I think they look really good. I hope people agree they look really good. So the thing is that at 640 400, the eye is quite different in the way that it picks up pixels. Because obviously everything's very pixelated. Whereas at this resolution, the eye is a lot less forgiving. So therefore, you have to have any weak animations or stray pixels jump out at you in the way that they don't in the lower resolution.
It's just how it has to feel coherent.
Yes,
so that's a nice thing coming back then. I have been playing it primarily on television because my first PC came around 1999, my first own PC. So when I've been playing, I had the C64, the Amiga on my television. And of course, if you play something on the television, it smudges a little bit.
Yep.
So even at a lower resolution, you can still look at it and it doesn't look that bad.
Yep. And by those days, I mean,
shouldn't the police come around soon? She's still lying dead down there.
They will come. Don't worry. They will come. Nico's gone chasing after after the thief. But I had my first PC and I'll play the game in 1980. Sorry, when did you get your first one?
My first real own PC computer was in 1999. So very, very late.
Oh, that is late.
I didn't have a lot of money. I went to school at the computer science department there to do the stuff. I had to do the Windows 95 and everything. But I did have a C64 and I had an Amiga at home.
Right.
So that was the stuff I had to work with before I really got the opportunity to have my own big real computer just to play Monkey Island and stuff like this. Later on.
Monkey?
Yeah, that's kind of an obscure series, so not that important. But it was pre-installed.
All right, that must be the reason. Yeah. I got my first PC in about 1998 or 1999, and it was a 386, and I bought it actually from the sister company of Softgold, which was a PC distributor. And they gave it to me reasonably cheaply, but it was still very, very expensive.
Yeah,
by my standards.
Yeah, I can totally imagine. Couple compared back 4,000 to 5,000 Deutschmarks. What was that? I don't know the equivalent, of course. It's at pounds.
But it was 2,000 euros.
It was way expensive than you would spend now on a really powerful computer.
Yep. So it's probably 2,000 euros.
Frankreichs größter Kunstkritiker.
And when I founded Revolution in 1990. I gave the PC to the two programmers who founded the company as well with me and my wife Noreen Carmody. But the two programmers who were working in Hull, a fellow called Tony Warrener, who's still at Revolution, and a guy called Dave Sykes, who was his friend, who was a very talented programmer who is not at Revolution anymore. But I gave them this PC, which was just my love. I loved it. Those flight simulators were so brilliant. You know, you were there. I mean, obviously it looks very crude by today's standard, but I just loved flying the F-16 and landing it on an aircraft
I
carrier.
think, if I'm not mistaken, we have somewhere down there still the handbook of Falcon 4.0, if you remember, which had just this big handbook just to have all the controls back there for the Falcon simulations.
But those were the Microprose games.
Yeah.
And those manuals were utterly brilliant, weren't they? Because in those days, you'd open up a box just to find out what was inside. And you'd get this thick book all about the F-16 or whatever, and you'd read it, or the Stealth Fighter. And part of the joy was reading this book and then the controls, right?
Yeah, you had to, especially if you had the simulators, the keyboard has so many buttons. Everyone is used.
Yeah.
So everything, you had to do it. And it was, you had the time, you had the energy, you had the commitment to work through this. So nowadays it's a bit different. And I still weep a little bit if you go and buy a retail game. Even console games nowadays, they don't have even a bit of a handbook in there. Even if the game would need it, you have the digital one, but there's just a piece of paper that says warranty 90 days or something.
For Baphomets Fluch, you have a comic book in there. So both on PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. Because again, I remember, like you, I remember how wonderful it was to actually open the box up. Ultima 7 was the best. Ultima 7, do you remember all the stuff? There was cloth maps,
yeah, so many things back there.
There were just so many things, and that's what when we did our Kickstarter, what I loved the idea of was giving a box that was just full of comics and posters and just cool things.
A baguette.
And a baguette. Yeah. No, we didn't do the baguette.
That's a very big box you had to sell then if there would be a baguette in there.
In den Nagelknipser war das Monogramm HL eingraviert.
But then what happened is that when we went to DVD, the publishers started just putting a DVD box, didn't they? And then when you opened the DVD box, there was just a DVD, and that was it. And so everything that had existed before, it was a big change. So let's just walk over here. Some of the other features that we do is with the right stick, you can move around, you can explore, so you don't need to move the character.
And they, like you said, the layers, the parallax scrolling back there, you can take a good look how many layers with the outside of the window.
Thank you very much. That was very kind to raise that. So in this particular case, we've got 5 layers. 1, 2, 3, 4, and there's a 5th one. I think the road is a 5th one. So as we move across, you can see that because ultimately, what I've tried to do is kind of hark back in many ways to those just brilliant cartoons. And nowadays, it's very difficult to find 2D layout artists because everybody's doing it digitally.
Yeah, I've kind of looked at the mobile space because there's a bit more of a haven for 2D art, I'd have to imagine, than on big
But that's pixel art, whereas what we have here is traditional 2D layout artists. So the game, of course, is a detective game. I mean, these all are, because what you're doing is you're investigating. And we're going to go in there.
I already noticed the camera. The camera up there.
Yeah, well.
So that's going to probably play into it a little bit.
It is going to play into it. Have you played this game before?
Once or twice, games like these, yeah.
And we also, again, I was talking about the fact that we want to reward the player. So, obviously, if you press a button, the alarm goes off. But what you actually do is you open the alarm box and you find, look.
Darum wurde also kein Alarm ausgelöst. Ein Kabel war durchtrennt worden, und zwar von jemandem, der genau wusste, was tat.
Somebody knew
das war ein
what to do.
Job gewesen.
So we have Alexander Scholzky.
Alexander Schottky.
Who's the George and has been the George all the way along.
Yeah, the German voice, and actually the voice of Nico switched.
Yes,
I think. Yeah, so nowadays it's Petra Conradi.
Yeah.
So this, and I think I had to research what exactly. I don't want to butcher the name for the previous actress. So we have to take a look there. How does it feel? Of course, you are in the development. This game or the previous games translated and voiced in so many languages. Does it feel a bit weird to playing it in German? Yeah.
Well,
Die Kabel von der Kamera liefen in das
the
Zimmer dahinter.
original
Die
game,
Kamera muss den ganzen Raum
our publisher
aufgezeichnet haben.
was
Wenn
it
ich
doesn't
den
exist
Code für
anymore,
das Türschloss
but it was
bekäme,
Virgin
könnte
Interactive.
ich vielleicht etwas Licht
And
in die Sache
Virgin
bringen.
were in many ways brilliant. And one of the things they took really seriously was the voice localization. And so the German office, which was run by a guy called Martin Spies, who really, really good guy, he and his team organized, well, Alexander right from the very beginning, and they took it very seriously. And one of the reasons that we built a big following is because of the quality of the, instead of, some people in England were just simply putting the English through a translator. And it was such a big mistake. Such a big mistake. There was a game called Mortal Coil, I gather, which was done that way. And it just got ripped to bits.
That's kind of a bit of a thing you have nowadays. It's kind of a important point for people. I think as adventure fan, I personally appreciate it a lot if there's been a lot of care put into the translation and especially the voice setting. You have also a very vocal part of the fans who say we want to play it in the original voice. So if it's English like that, it's more like nowadays it's a choice to have there.
Okay, well, thank you. What a great... Can I say... Because a lot of German people told us that they really like playing the game...
it's back down the last one. Oh, it's the options.
Thank you, yeah. Really like playing the game in the original language. So what we can do is we allow you to change the language. Here we go into French. Here we go into Italian. Here we go to Spanish. Into German, English, and what we'll do is we'll go back into German, and then just to help me, I'm going to
switch it to English now.
Here we've got Russian. We've got Russian, English, Polish, Spanish, Italian, German. You have ones.
Yeah, you have more text languages than speech languages, but still
French. We have Russian and Polish in addition. But this feature was put in specifically for a lot of Germans who love the idea of, well, for younger Germans, learning English, which is a great way of doing it, because if you have the speech in German and the text in English, or the other way around, then it's a great way of actually enjoying playing a game and learning a new language as well.
If it's fitting, if it's not translated up, then you start with Japanese games where you have different voice acting and different text underneath. So kind of like this, but I always appreciate it, and that's actually also one of the questions here. If you don't mind, I'm gonna also start to do questions from Reddit.
Please do, yeah.
So because a lot of people wrote and have a lot of to ask here. We talked about the voice acting. So Kravutnik wants to know, I hope I'm speaking the names right. He wants to know, or she wants to know. A lot of developers don't. A lot of developers always put a little bit of Easter eggs in their games. I think we talk about this point. You put a lot of otherwise Easter eggs or little things already in this game that concern your personal life, yeah? So that's a big thing for you? Put Easter eggs in, put stuff in that concerns yourself?
The Easter eggs are not necessarily personal, but as a spoiler,
very small spoiler.
This is a very, very small spoiler. What I think is really important is that people don't need to have played previous games of Revolution at all to enjoy it. But if they have, so you see here's a little
Have to click on a specific place.
Yeah, you have to stick on it.
Foster, Sensoren entdecken Eintreffen der Audioquelle.
So the reason being that this is actually, if you look into the glass, you can see that it actually looks like Joey from Beneath the Steel Sky. So we have that, and also later in the game there's a goat, and we can talk about the goat because that's quite a fun story if you want. But then there are plenty of Easter eggs associated with the goat. So we want to stuff the game with Easter eggs, because people love achievements, don't they? They love getting new achievements, and that's fantastic.
I think if you would be making games, and especially games like this, I just couldn't stop myself from putting Easter eggs in, just one after the other, as long as it doesn't hamper the enjoyment of the game itself.
No, absolutely. So,
let's see, what do we have more? So, what's up with Broken Sword 6?
Bless you. I've got some. Do you know the great thing about Broken Sword 6 is I've got a really nice story that is based on sort of mythology and comes to Germany as well. It's ridiculous that none of the Broken Sword games have come to Germany. So there's some really, really nice ideas. Obviously, I can't talk about them because it would be stupid and it would be the ultimate spoiler. But I'm really thrilled by the reception that we've had to this game. There's so much. I was saying to you earlier, wasn't I? We have such a passionate fan base who are so nice and so supportive. And if I can just finish off on the Kickstarter, because you were asking about that earlier.
Yeah.
You know, what we've done is we've delivered a game that we promised to do. We've given all the rewards. There are 2 digital rewards which I still haven't delivered, but I'm going to film them actually next week, and we will deliver them. But people are so forgiving, and the reason I think is that when people sign up to a Kickstarter, what they're basically saying is we want to be involved in the development. Obviously, we want the game at the end of it, and some people pay an awful lot of money and absolutely deserve the very best service. But what really struck me is that when we launched the Kickstarter, which was in August 2012, rather naively, I said it was going to be April. The game was going to be delivered in April, which it kind of could have been if we wrote the game that we said we were going to write. But one of the stretch goals were new locations. So the idea of actually being able to deliver it, so the new locations meant we were more ambitious, which we expanded the game. So when we came to April, it was absolutely clear that the game was not going to be finished. So I was really worried about this, and I wasn't quite sure what to do. But anyway, we put out an update saying that we're really sorry, or I did, saying I'm really sorry, but I misjudged it. And I was expecting a lot of reaction, and we did get lots of reactions, but it was all positive, not one negative. Half the people said, we didn't believe you anyway. And the other half said, look, we've waited 5 years, so, And it was just great. And what was really important to me, it became clear at that point that our community might turn against us, but if they did, then it was our fault. It was because we would make mistakes, because there was so much positivity. And generally, most people have come at the end of the Kickstarter and said, it's such a shame it's over, and thank you for sharing it with us.
Yeah.
So generally, I feel quite pleased with the way that we worked with our community. And they were fantastic, I have to say.
I think it's always a thing of transparency. So you don't have any Kickstarter that's, or maybe 1 or 2 of all the millions that are out there that are finishing on time, because the scope always gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And if you have the trust from the fans, from the people, from the contributors, who paid with the money before for the idea and for the concept before even having the finished product. So as long as you're honest with them and you're transparent, I think this stuff's going to work out.
And also, they want to feel part of the whole development process. So therefore, your problems are kind of their problems, as long as you're transparent. But at the same time, with an adventure, you can't give too much away. So you can't be utterly transparent. What you have to do is you have to be as honest as possible without giving spoilers. And that's what we try to do.
That's what we try to do. Unfortunately, we don't have that much time left, and it's always, it runs away if we're doing it like this.
So do you want to ask some questions?
Yeah, I have to see. A lot of stuff has been already covered with what we said. But we have one here. So Adanven wants to know. I wanted to read from Das Handtuch. It means the towel, so that's the name. In 2015, everybody's playing first-person shooters and MOBAs, and you're still making adventure games. So don't you want to try something else out than adventure games? Do you have the itch?
What a great question, thank you. What we write is we write narrative games, and it's really important that we try and innovate in that sphere. I wrote my first game, as I was saying, for the Sinclair ZX81 in 1981, and that was a text adventure. It was a bit of a crappy text adventure because you can go back and see it and play it, and it's just really naive. And then with Revolution, we created with Lure the Temptress, Virtual Theatre, so always trying to innovate. So moving forward, I would love to do another Broken Sword, and will do. But before then, I'm actually working on an original game that uses narrative in a slightly different way. And the lovely thing about not being beholden to publishers is that we can experiment, and if it doesn't work, we pull back. So I don't want to talk about it now because it'll almost certainly change enormously. But yes, I mean, at the heart, the crux of the question is absolutely yes. I do want to do new types of game, but they will be games more like this in terms of narrative, emergent story, etc.
Yeah, it's once you go narrative, you cannot go back or something. No.
And also, there are other people that do it better than you. You know, that would be the silly thing. There are so many talented developers, particularly young people now coming in, that what we've got to do is we've got to focus on what we do well, because otherwise we will just get beaten by people who are better than us.
Charles, it's been a pleasure that you once again.
Are we really finished?
Yeah, we're really finished. It's always the looking over there, waiting, pointing the fingers on the clock. But it's been really once again a big pleasure.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much.
Find a way over here. You're always welcome if you're here, if you're near. So just knock on the door. We'll open it up and just point a camera at you.
Perfect.
If you have something else to show us, then come over here and we'll stay in contact. And especially, as I said, I'm gonna do a little bit something at Retro Club about Lure of the Temptress and about Beneath the Steel Sky. So
Great.
we'll have a little bit of an opportunity to see what came before.
We've got some comics and USB sticks and things to give away as competition prizes for anybody.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm gonna the stuff that we got here. I'm gonna see that it goes everything out to the people over there. So, Charles,
lovely.
once
Thank
again,
you very much. It's lovely
thank
to
you
see you
very
again.
much. Tschüss. This was German.
Tschüss.